The Burgess Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation empowers students to learn through action by providing campus-wide programs, courses, and resources to test ideas, foster an entrepreneurial mindset, develop empathy, and create new ventures. Learn more at eship.msu.edu.
This episode of the Hatchcast is brought to you by the MSU Entrepreneurship Association. The MSU EA is a registered student organization open to all majors who are passionate about entrepreneurship. Find out more at msuea.org.
Hi, Aubrey Hass, Events and Project Coordinator, back with this week's event segment. This week, we hosted Michelle Green and John Rood, power couple of the Chicago business scene, on their joint and individual entrepreneurial journeys and their time at Michigan State University. Please enjoy this exclusive video content from their fireside chat now. Tune in to our next and last Innovate State conversation of 2020 with Manish Rithi, CEO and founder of Joy Run, on December 1st at 6 p.m. See you then.
So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Sell. I lead alumni engagement on behalf of the Burgess Institute for Entrepreneurship Innovation here at Michigan State University. Hot off the heels of some great press that happy to share with all of you that we moved up in some national rankings according to Princeton Review. We know we have a long ways to go, but we are thrilled at the news that I think a lot of the hard work from the team, and most importantly, the work that we are getting from the alumni across the country and across the globe that are volunteering their time to support the program, support our students, apply their expertise and their philanthropic support. We couldn't be more appreciative of everything they're doing. And two of those alumni you're going to be hearing from here in a moment tonight. So thanks to them for carving out time out of their busy schedule to join us this evening. Before we get to the heart of the program, I just want to make sure that you all know kind of the protocol for Innovate State. This is our Fireside Chat speaker series where we regularly host accomplished alumni, founders, investors, innovators, and doers to share their story, their ups and downs, successes and failures, and their entrepreneurial journey with all of us. And this will be, I think, the fourth or fifth installment of the fall semester. And we've got one more coming up here in a few short weeks, the beginning of December, featuring another alumnus of Michigan State, Manish Rithi, the founder of Joy Run, based over in California. Manish is incredible. I can't wait to hear his story in just a few short weeks. So make sure and register for that free event if you haven't already done so. And it's going to be another fantastic conversation, I'm sure of it. So as you know, this program is welcome to the public. So not only do we have MSU students joining us tonight, but we also have staff and faculty from the MSU community, as well as alumni and friends of the university. Again, across the country, we've had other folks from overseas join us for Innovate State this semester. It's one of the silver linings of this program, getting the opportunity to welcome everyone to join us for this event. So a few other upcoming announcements. We recently completed our second startup weekend of the fall semester here at Michigan State, but we have two more scheduled for the spring semester, both in February and April 2021. It's an opportunity where our students and community members come together to pursue a business idea over 2 days, and it's awesome. It's a ton of fun. And for students that are watching, you can actually contact us about getting plugged in for that next one taking place in early to mid-February 2021. If you're an alumnus or friend of MSU and you want to be involved as a mentor or coach, you can do that too. We regularly welcome close to 20 or 30 alumni each startup weekend to be a mentor or a coach. And we also have some of those folks join us as a judge for the competition as well. So make sure and contact us to get plugged in for startup weekend. Also stay tuned for upcoming announcements later in the spring semester for the Burgess New Venture Challenge, which is our annual student business model competition featuring MSU students across our campus community. I think with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleague, Ken Smuziak. I'll just mention, for those of you who are watching, if you want a question to ask of our speakers tonight, you can go ahead and enter your question in the Q&A forum. We're going to be monitoring that this evening, and we can ask that question on your behalf during the conversation. Then we're also going to have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end of our formal conversation tonight too. So make sure, and again, you'll notice the chat function is disabled, but you can enter your questions in the Q&A function of the program. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn over to my esteemed colleague, Ken Smuziak, the Managing Director for Academic Programs for the Burgess Institute. Go ahead and take it away, Ken.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Hi, everybody. Tonight, I have the distinct privilege of hosting Innovate State with a couple of Spartans that I've been really excited to get to know over the past few months. Joining us tonight are Michelle Green and John Rood, a husband-wife duo of entrepreneurs, and both of which are strong Spartan alums and have been generous with their time and their philanthropy back to the university. And they're going to share with us kind of their entrepreneurial journey, both of which I think you'll find to be really interesting, and some of their insights that they'll be able to share with us tonight. So I'm excited to be hosting tonight. For those of you who are first timers to Innovate State, we try to take a rather casual approach to the Q&A and kind of let the conversation free flow. To Chris's point, though, please do use the Q&A function. And if anything sparks you and you're interested in gaining some more insights, we'll be trying to keep an eye on that as well. So glad everybody could join us this evening. So with that being said, I'm going to do some quick intros, and I'll just ask Michelle and John to dive in and introduce themselves briefly, and then we can roll into some questions. So Michelle, why don't we start with you?
Sounds good. And thank you so much for having us here. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here. And congratulations, Ken and Chris and Aubrey and everyone at the Burgess Institute for that great news of well-deserved honor from the Princeton Review.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my name is Michelle Green. I am an attorney, and I founded a law office called G&G Law and it's here in Chicago where we live. And we practice small business law. So it's really fun to be able to be here and be part of the program at Michigan State that helps entrepreneurs. And I get to talk to awesome entrepreneurs every day at my job who are building really cool things. I kind of say that it's the one space in the legal field where your clients are sort of happy to talk to a lawyer. So it's been really fun. Also in my background, went to Michigan State, graduated from there in 2005. Then I went to law school in Chicago at Chicago Kent. While I was in law school, John and I co-founded Next Step Test Preparation, bootstrapped it into one of the largest MCAT test prep providers, and ended up selling it to a private equity company a couple of years ago. So that was the best possible lucky entrepreneur journey to help me too as a coach and a counsel for my small business clients with G&G Law. Now we live in Chicago. We've got 2 kids, 5 years old, 3 years old, and lots going on right now. So quite busy.
Very, very busy. I'm looking forward to talking more about what you do at G&G a little bit differently than other law firms based on your experience as a entrepreneur and business owner yourself. So I think it's really, you do some unique things. So I look forward to that conversation as well here tonight, Michelle. Thanks. John?
Oh, sure. So let's see. I was James Madison College, 2005. I went to graduate school at the University of Chicago for a year. Then I was in management consulting for 3 years. Then we started our entrepreneurial journey together. Michelle and I ran Next Step Test Preparation from 2009 through 2018. Sold it. I stayed with that business, operating it as an employee for about 1.5 years. Left that at the end of last year. Took some time off, watched my kids in COVID in rural West Michigan for 3 months. And now I'm back at it, back in the game with a couple of startup concepts that I'm launching.
That's awesome. Thanks. So I always start whenever I'm hosting Innovate State, I always kind of start my conversation around, I don't know, I like to kind of baseline what life was like at MSU for our guests. So maybe tell us about what your time was like at MSU. Either one of you can lead, but it's always interesting to hear what your experience was at Michigan State.
You want to go first this time, John?
Oh, sure. What was my experience like? I loved it. I would say that I'm a huge proponent of the liberal arts. So the education that I got in James Madison College was amazing. We didn't have at Michigan State all of this stuff. There was no Burgess Institute. There was no Entrepreneurship Center, at least that I'm aware of. So I would say, what was life like? I read a lot of books and I wrote a lot of papers. But on top of that, I always urge students now that these resources are like unprecedented in the history of time, that you can like come and do startup weekend and get those kinds of experiences. So that's the kind of stuff that I wish that we would have had, and then I wish that someone would have told me to do. But I did love my time at Michigan State.
Yeah, I had a great time at Michigan State too. I feel really, really lucky to have ended up at, I also was in James Madison College. That's where we met. I grew up on the west side of Michigan in Muskegon, in a place where everyone expected to go to college, but nobody around us was, trying to get into the Ivy League or thinking about Harvard necessarily. And I just feel so lucky that I was sort of maybe expected to go to community college or stick really close to home, but then discovering, Michigan State is a world-class institution. I went to James Madison College, which is amazing liberal arts college that you can also get that small feel. And it was an hour and a half away from where I grew up. And to have that available to people like me that grew up in that situation, it was really lucky. Plus, I met great people at Michigan State. Met my husband there. I miss the great places there, like Woody's Oasis. Hopefully that's still there. The rooftop on Ellis Teco. Just a lot of fun times.
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, things are a little different. It's a little quiet down there, but
oh yeah, now nobody's going anywhere.
I know. So you both ended up in Chicago. Obviously, you met each other at MSU. What was the jump start for Next Step? So tell us about how that kind of came to be. Both of you were entered, if I'm doing the timing right, you both went to grad school in Chicago, correct? Mm-hmm. So is that for at least some period of time? What was the big kind of aha moment to jump into Next Step and realize that this is something that's worthy of pursuit?
So we had both worked at Kaplan. Everyone knows Kaplan Test Prep. We had both been LSAT instructors for a short time. So we knew that market pretty well. And actually that's one of the tips that I give to college students and young people that are thinking about starting a business is just go work in that industry for like some amount of time. Like what you will learn, like if you say like, I want to go into, K-12 education, what you will learn by like going to work at like McGraw-Hill, even for like 6 months or even like 3 months makes it worth it. So we learned a little bit about kind of the craft of how test prep is done and the business of how test prep is done. And then I got to a point where I'd been in consulting for 3 years. It's kind of time to move on. I was just tired of that experience. And we both, when we talked about it, we kind of remembered back to our time at Kaplan. We'd seen some inefficiencies that we could exploit in their business model. And also we saw the opportunity to start a business where we could kind of be the product, right? So everyone out there who, doesn't have access to millions of dollars of venture capital, who doesn't have, $100,000 that you can raise from friends and family. There's lots of businesses that you can start as a services business. I mean, that's probably not going to end up being, your $1 billion exit, but services business are fantastic. That's what we did. And just like thinking through, what can I start where the cash cycle is good and positive? Those are good things. So, long way to say, we saw the opportunity. We had kind of the fortunate chance of being in an industry with a good cash cycle, and we took the chance.
Okay, cool. So
And we
basically,
just jumped into it too. So John was able to, he planned it. He said, I want a high cash producing business. What should I go into? We had that experience. And then we were like, let's just test it out. Put my ad up on Craigslist and see if we can get tutoring students in. So I think really starting a business, the best advice that from our experience is get out there, test it, see if your ideas work as soon as possible, take the action.
yeah, and I mean, I always, so my wife and I, when we owned our retail business, she was so in the trenches on her craft. Like it didn't feel as risky once you spent a little time doing something for a bit. So it sounds like your time at Kaplan kind of really exposed you to some of the problems that you could experience in that space and gave you the comfort to take the risk, right? So what were, you spoke to like kind of identifying the problems. What were the ways that you really tried to structure next step to be different in the market? What were the things that stood out to you to know that you could offer something else to the crowds that they'd be interested in?
So here's what our time at Kaplan had taught us. So Kaplan is a huge company and they have to make huge company decisions. So when they have, we started as an LSAT company. So when they have an LSAT class, their business model revolves around everyone in the class paying, I think at the time, probably about $1,400 to come and be in a classroom on campus. And they had to get at least 15 students in that classroom, but ideally more like 30 or 35. What they didn't like to do there, because they were big companies, they didn't like to do individual instruction. They offered it, but they didn't like to staff it. It's a pain in the ass. And the reasons are, like, when you're a big company, you don't want to have to staff a product where the sticker price is $2,000 or whatever, $3,000, when what you want to do is we want to have a class with 30 people where we're bringing in $45,000 for that class. It takes the same amount of work to staff it. So long story short, big companies have to make big company decisions, but we were able to identify a place where there's demand for a product. They don't want to staff it. So we're going to kind of slide in underneath them. And then we can do marketing in a different way, right? Then instead of saying, oh, please come sign up for our class. And then if you ask for tutoring, you can have it, which is what Kaplan does. We're able to say, classes are terrible. You should absolutely sign up for individual tutoring. It's way, way, way better. And that's the thing that Kaplan couldn't say.
Yeah. How did you get that to scale, right? Because when people hear the term tutoring, oftentimes it's like, man, that seems really one-on-one intensive type work, which it is, right? I mean, to start, I think you even said it, right? Both of you said, well, we have the ability to do the tutoring. Let's hang the shingle, cash flow comes in fast. How did you grow from that, Michelle and John working one-on-one with clients to a business that equity was interested in? What were the types of things?
I would say that it was a long journey, and I would do it. It would go faster this time if we were to do it again. I think that the way that it actually went was this. So we did the tutoring. We got full. We went and hired some tutors. We expanded to some other markets. Then finally hired a manager to manage the tutors. Then 3 managers. Then a manager of the managers. And then you kind of got to where you had a little bit of scale. I think that services business, like, it depends what you mean by scale, right? So there are some companies, like there's a company in a tutoring space, it's called Varsity Tutors. It's raised $100 million plus of venture capital, probably has a couple $100 million of revenue. So it's possible to scale that business, but it's very hard and most people don't. But that's why I always think, like, people have to think what their goals are, right? Like if you said, I want to start a company, I want it to generate, a couple $1 million of revenue and I can have a nice lifestyle, I think that's a great success. And I think that then there's a lot of ways that you can do it. And so, I think that when you think about it, if you're a student entrepreneur, and Michelle made that point earlier, like just getting started and testing things out, if you can get one business off the ground, like your life has changed, even if that's not a $1 billion business. Like if I were starting out today and I was 22, I swear to you, what I would do is I would go to Home Depot, I would buy a power washer on my credit card, and I would go power wash people's driveways, and then I would hire someone else to power wash for me and do the marketing. Power washing. That's where the money is. Yeah.
So maybe talk a little bit about, as you scaled, I'm always interested to know, like you said, John, scale is a relative thing. Right? So I by no means, when I use the term scale, do I mean necessarily $1 billion business, but certainly the ability for your business to generate revenues beyond just Michelle and yours time, right? As that to some extent is scaling, right? But as the business grew, what were some of the lessons you learned kind of along that journey that if rewinding time, it's always fun to look back, right? And think about, oh man, had I known this, or the business would shake out this way. But what was it like going from founding the business to managing and growing the business? What were some of the things that you picked up along the way that maybe you can share with students as they think about their future?
I think the hardest thing, John, was hiring the salesperson.
Yeah, that was hard. That was emotionally hard.
Yeah, but that's from my experience talking to other entrepreneurs. Like that's the tough moment to get to. Maybe I'll explain from the outside. Yeah, so John, once we did a good job, I think, of delegating the tutoring and hiring tutors pretty quickly. But then John was spending all of his days on the phone talking to potential students and selling them the tutors and matching the student tutor relationship all day long. And as an entrepreneur, to scale the business, what entrepreneurs really need to do is have the time to be able to strategize and make the growth plan and move to the next step. But he was on the phone all the day long doing the sales, so he couldn't do that. But it's scary at that moment in time where you don't know where we're going to end up, and can you really afford to bring somebody in to take us to the next level? And I think the emotional, correct me if I'm wrong, John, but the emotional part of it was John was really, really good at this. He's really good at the sales aspect of it. And having this thought, like, could anybody else ever possibly sell this? And it seems ridiculous now to think back. But we talked about that every single night at dinner for months. And I think that was the moment where we were just a small little business where we broke through that moment. And then we're in a place where we could scale. And from a business standpoint, that wasn't maybe probably the biggest move from a business standpoint was moving from services to products. But from an emotional, can we do this standpoint, I think that was the biggest junction. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I think that the jump from being in your business to working on your business is just like prototypically very, very important. The book there for people to read it's called The E-Myth, or The E-Myth Revisited, I think is a new version, which is a really bad book, but it tells teaches a really good lesson, which is you have to get out of that day-to-day if you're going to scale your business at all. And I think that most entrepreneurs who I speak to, including myself, did that too slowly. So to Michelle's point, I didn't think anyone could sell test prep as well as I could have. And now that I say that to an audience of like 100 people, that sounds remarkably stupid, right? The idea that like I would be the best in the whole world at a thing, like totally randomly, that's stupid, right? So we went and hired someone who then started beating my sales numbers all the time. And then we hired a second person. He started beating my sales numbers too. And then we hired a third person and she beat everyone's sales numbers. Then we made her the sales manager. And then like, I didn't really have to do anything for a while. And that was a good point in the business. But the other thing to think through is to get over that hump, you have to get good at managing. And managing is a thing where I don't know that they really teach it in school. Like I certainly didn't learn it in school. And you learn how to manage people. I think like if you do it it's one of those things where if you just sort of do it randomly, you make a lot of mistakes. I think it's good to read books about management, even though a lot of them are like corny as hell. I think it's good to talk to other entrepreneurs. Like if there's someone in the audience who wants to hire their first person and is nervous about it, please email me tonight and I will like walk you through it. But like the skill of being able to bring out to hire and to manage well is critical for literally every business. And the length of time it takes you between being able to do that and like actually hiring successfully is like how successful your business is going to be, how quickly.
Yeah, that transition to delegating some of these big roles, just it's such a weird moment, I feel like.
Yeah.
But as you pointed out, John, man, there's so much talent out there. If you can find a way to get the right people in the door and get them in the right position and help grow their their skill sets too. I mean, then all of a sudden it's like gasoline on your business.
Yeah. And now, just let me say one more thing, Ken. Like now, I've totally reversed that. Like I've gone exactly the opposite direction. I've started one of the businesses that I'm starting. I'm hiring an operator for it, and I'm not going to be involved. Like I'm going to work on it 5 hours a week, and I'm going to try to coach. I'm going to be the coach, not the player. And you can't do that starting out because you can't afford to pay a salary. But like, get to the point where you can pay a salary as fast as you can, and then do it.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So a question did come in. When did you know it was time to hire someone? When did you feel like on your journey you knew it was time to bring on more employees and begin moving to that management role? It's like, was there any tipping point where you both felt overwhelmed, or what was it?
Okay, so I'll tell you the real story and I'll tell you the lesson, because the real story is, again, me making a mistake. So for 4 years, I was the only employee. Like Michelle was the co-founder, then she went to law school. So I was the only full-time person. Then we had our team of tutors. And so I did that for 4 years. To give you an idea of what that was like, I should have brought it from my background today. I worked in a little one-room office, and it was dank as hell. And I worked there for 4 years selling tutoring. And then one day I wanted to go on vacation. I hadn't been on vacation in 4 years, where I didn't answer the phone. We went on little trips and whatnot. But so I wanted to go to Argentina. So I was like, well, I better hire someone. And that was the stupid way to do it, right? The smart way to do it would have been to have said, as soon as I can hire, I'm going to hire, right? That's really the answer. When do you know? If you're operating a business and you're asking yourself, should I make my first hire? The answer is definitely yes, because I guarantee you're asking too late.
Right. And if your business is making enough money that you can afford to do it, you should be doing it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really inspired. Actually, I think it's a good strategy to do it that way, but maybe do it before 4 years. But I was really inspired by the 4-hour work week by Tim. What's his last name?
Tim Ferriss.
Ferriss. Yeah. So it's kind of just a good, can you take a vacation for 2 weeks without answering the phones? What would it take to take a vacation? And then the process of planning that out means who do you need? Who's the most important? Who needs to run things is a nice way to set it up.
So Michelle, during the growth of Next Step, when did you begin to branch out into your law firm? Was that in the middle, at the beginning, at the end? How did you also carve your own path with G&G Law?
Yeah, it's kind of an intertwined story. So I went to law school at the absolute worst time to go to law school. I went when the most students were going, and then by the time between when I applied and got accepted and planned to go and when I started law school, it turned into a legal recession, major legal recession. I started law school in 2008. But then while I was in law school is when John and I started Next Step. And through the process of starting it, we were looking for a lawyer for the basics of our partnership agreement, setting up our LLC, that type of stuff. And I had friends who were graduating ahead of me that, had jobs at big law firms, but then those job offers were rescinded because of the recession. Yeah. And then after that, no law firms were hiring. So I'm seeing this market where there are all of these lawyers who don't have jobs. And then us, our small business, just starting out, we couldn't find a lawyer to help us with these things that we needed a lawyer for. And there's a lot of lawyers focusing on public interest and pro bono. There's tons of lawyers. But we couldn't afford a $400 an hour lawyer from a big law firm. So as I saw that while I was in law school, and then at the same time sort of applying for jobs at law firms, realizing what the billable requirements are at law firms, dividing that out by the salary, and realizing if I advertise my tutoring services for $50 on Craigslist, I'm actually making less than that. at, with a salaried legal job, given the billable hour requirements. So it opened itself up. All of those things opened themselves up to be like, I could do this. I could start my law firm. I know how to start a business. I could follow along. Now that we've done an LLC formation, we've drafted operating agreements, I know how to do that kind of stuff. I'm sure that there are other businesses that need that. I can go out and do it, and then at the same time be able to have the tutoring. And we didn't know, exactly what next step would turn into at that time, but at least I had the tutoring that made it feel a lot safer. So that's what I started. I started the law firm G&G Law right out of law school, and have just been working on it and growing it since then.
The majority of your clients, I take it, are small business owners, correct?
Yeah, so we do all small business transactional law. So we work on formations, so setting up LLCs, partnership agreements, operating agreements, and then also we do IP, trademarks, contract drafting and review, negotiation, M&A work, so buying and selling businesses, employment
Super
issues.
Cool. I just love it because similar to what you both found when exploring the test prep industry, you also found this niche within law. And I think sometimes as like a student outside looking in, it's hard. It feels like all the ideas are taken, right? Like it's such a weird. Sometimes it's weird though, right? Because like I always say, Google is the great dream killer, right? You Google any idea, and certainly you find people are trying things, right? With 7 billion people on the planet. And what's your advice to finding problems? Like, I think sometimes people just don't think of things as being like, oh, that's not worth my time, or certainly someone's done it. Any advice to students on how to explore, or maybe, I don't know, remain curious, or what are spaces that you?
And to John's point, in a lot of ways, to start a business, I think entrepreneurship, everybody thinks of it as going to venture capital and getting funding and being a unicorn and coming up with the next Google. But I think the most successful businesses, the most likelihood to succeed, to John's point from earlier, start a plumbing business and make it easier for me to call a plumber. So, go with what you know people need. And people have ideas all the time, but it's the doing it that's the really hard part of it. So if you're going to go out and do it, and you're going to be excited about it, you're going to have a good likelihood of success.
Yeah.
And I would add to that, there's a question in the chat. Ken, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to take this question in the chat because it's totally related, which was, how long did it take next step to become profitable? And the answer to that question is basically the first week we became profitable, because by accident / choice, we started a business with a good cash cycle, right? So in test prep, you charge students up front, and then you do their program and you accrue your costs, right? And then when you have instructors, you charge a student up front, your instructor does the work, and then you're paying them every 2 weeks. So you're getting the money first, you hold the money, and then you pay out the money later. That's a good cash cycle, as opposed to if I wanted to sell, doodads, I have to order 10,000 of them in a container ship from China. They sit in my garage, and then I try to get paid for them. That is a materially worse first business. And I've spent a lot of time thinking and some time writing about this concept of like your first business. Most people's first businesses who are successful are not billion-dollar businesses, right? Like they pick something, they figure out how to go do it. Like I listened to a podcast. It's called My First Million. I love this podcast. And they had a guy who started off doing a college moving service, which like literally anyone listening to this could do it, where they would find the out-of-state students, offer to store their crap at the end of the semester. So they like drive to the residence hall, pick up your stuff in May, go store it, and drive it back in August. So he did that, took that money, started investing in storage units, and now owns like $20 million worth of storage units and has like a big business and is like super rich. So the way that I think about it, and this is exactly what Michelle is saying, like you don't have to find a unique problem. You have to find a thing that you can do better. And as a young person, knowing what you know about online marketing, about web development, all that stuff, like those skills, a lot of people don't have. Like, I'll give you an example. We own, a rental property in West Michigan. I cannot get someone to come fix the stove in this rental property, like for any amount of money. Like if someone out there listening wants to go fix this stove, I will give you $200 to go fix it, like cash money, because the guys that are doing it, like you call them and like they don't pick up the phone. There's some voicemail like, hey, I'm on vacation or whatever. And like if you said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be the appliance repair of West Michigan, I bet you get $250,000 a year revenue business that's highly profitable in 6 months. You just have to do the work, right? Like there's nothing sexy about that. Like there's that old Edison quote, I think, which is like, what is it? I think it's opportunity. Most people miss opportunity because it's wearing overalls and looks like hard work. Like that's exactly what it is, right? Like plumbing, HVAC, storage unit, power wash. Oh, I'm on the power wash train so hard. Like start one of those businesses, make it your first business, get to where you don't need a job. And then like you can do literally anything you want for the rest of your life. I
love that. Someone in the chat said, make it 250 and you got a deal.
Dude, yeah. Email me later if you know how to fix the stove.
Hard bargains here.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna answer another one of these questions live because I had this on my list too. What was it like as a husband-wife duo? Someone asked, what was it like starting a business with your partner? And sometimes. So my wife and I, we owned a business together. I had another full-time job. It was definitely her day-to-day job. We had the unique circumstance of also living above the business. We bought the commercial building and like lived in the loft above it, which pros and cons, right? Easy commute to work, but wow, we felt like we never got out of work. So any advice to people who may be exploring business opportunities with their significant others?
Do you want to take that one, sweetheart?
I was gonna see if you would go first, and I knew you wouldn't. I don't know. I don't think that it's any more like relationships take a lot of work. Businesses take a lot of work. I'm not sure that having a business together was more difficult than trying to juggle 2 careers and jobs. From talking to friends, it doesn't seem like it's that much more difficult. And then there's some amazing benefits to having the business together and the marriage together, because my favorite thing about people starting businesses is like I think there's a lot of focus on the competitiveness and making a ton of money and making as much money as possible. But I also think there's this other track that was really important to us of creating your own business is like creating your own way of living your life and figuring out what your biggest priorities are, and then making your business work for you and for your priorities. So while it's a lot of work and it's a lot of stress to have a business, it also is our own stress of our own making. So we have the ability to say, we want to set up this business so that we can leave the country for 2 weeks and it will run itself. And I think I don't know if it makes marriage easier, but from setting up a lifestyle and building a life together, I think that I feel a lot more fulfilled having that ability now to build it in our own terms and not have to, ask the boss for a vacation every single time you want to go.
No, that's a really cool point. Anything to add there, John?
No, I agree wholeheartely with that statement.
Yeah.
Well said.
It's something about the creation of something new also, which is just, I don't know, something about it's just so, I don't know, it's energizing, right? It's super neat. So other things I had on my docket, because I'm always interested, what was your experience like in selling the business? We always get questions like that, as well as you had this thing, it was super cool, you built it from the ground up, and there's an opportunity that comes to you to sell. What was that process like? And maybe walk us through some of the ups and downs of that experience.
That experience was surprisingly stressful.
Yeah.
But then it's over and they send the money. So
yeah, it's hard to complain because we were very lucky. Go ahead.
I'm trying to think. I'll try to speak in generalities that are kind of useful to the group. So, in this environment, when you get to be a certain size, or at least are perceived to be a certain size, people start kind of circling around your business. The first circlers are the search funders, who are graduates of top business schools that, instead of getting a job, are going to try to find some company to buy and run it, and they'll get some investors. So when we got to where we were, kind of well known in our profession, where if you would like Google top test prep companies, we'd be on like one of the first 3 pages. You started to get calls from those people, and those are like, okay, that's easy to say no to them. But then we got this opportunity from private equity firm. We got an offer that I thought was quite fair. We hired a investment banker to kind of go prove that out, to negotiate it for us a little bit. And it seemed basically fair. I think that I had been in that business for 8 years full time. And Michelle, as she had mentioned, was doing something else as more of an advisor or board member. I didn't really want to do test prep forever necessarily. And so it seemed like it was time to kind of move on. The other aspect of it, just speaking really frankly, is for most business owners, their business is by far their biggest asset. And it's like, for people that have like a normal W-2 job, it's like, okay, like you make, let's say someone makes $80,000 a year and you live in a $260,000 house. Like, okay, your house is your biggest asset, like by a lot. When you own a business, the size of the business is like can be orders of magnitude bigger than that house, right? And so you're very aware at any point that you have an extraordinarily valuable asset. It's basically the only asset that you own. And at any point it could drop to zero, right? So you're always trying to like deal with that risk of probably your business will like keep going basically as it is, but there's a very small but non-zero chance that it drops radically. And if you do that, like now your kid's college fund is in doubt. And so that's kind of that's a risky proposition.
Sure.
I feel like it's tough though to remind yourself of that possibility, because the whole time you're building your business, you're in this success mindset and telling yourself it will be successful. And I think I like to hear that, like, from the emotional standpoint was the hardest part about it. And I think that at the selling the business, thinking about the offers that come through, we always said in a weird way, for some reason, even though that we knew we wanted to sell someday, like we started the business before we got married. We did it together. We were there every step of the way. It feels like your baby in a lot of ways, but that was before we had babies. And I kind of think we kept telling ourselves during the sale process of, this isn't a baby, it's a business, and you have to let it go. And like the process of taking your business and putting it in the hands of another person is not an easy process. And so sort of coming back to that logic and reminding yourself of, it's subject to risk and you need to let go and you don't want to do this forever. And at some point you just have to let somebody else take over.
Yeah. How was that process like, John, for you to have to go join as an employee for a little bit too? Was that strange?
Yeah, I thought it was really hard. I think that it was a thing that I expected to be a little hard. It turned out to be very hard. And then when I talked to other entrepreneurs who had been through that, 100% of them said, it's going to be very hard. Why didn't you know that? Maybe like not in such a mean way. But I think that the expectation is like, people don't become entrepreneurs like by accident usually. Like you're doing that because you need to be building something, like, and you need to be in charge. Like I think that there's lots of cushy corporate jobs out there, and in many ways it's easier to go work at Google or whatever and have a 9 to 5. So if you're an entrepreneur, there's something there that you need. And when you sell your business, like you agree to give that up. And then whatever happens. But yeah, that was a challenging process.
Right, because you essentially went from making decisions to, you're still involved in decision making, but it's no longer you're not the final say anymore, right?
Yes, that is correct, Ken. You are not the final say.
Yeah. Kind of a strange moment, but for people who didn't know that, it's very typical in private equity to bring along the founder or CEO to continue on for some period of time in the transition, right? So
yeah, everyone has to stay for some amount of time. I've never seen a deal where everyone just gets to walk away at close. If you generally speaking, if you sell to a strategic buyer, like another company in your industry is what that means generally, oftentimes they want you out a little faster. The private equity model is that they would like for you to continue participating in the business, and you retain a share of the business, and hopefully it grows, but they want you there generally.
yeah, I actually know some folks here in the Lansing market. It's one of the only examples I've ever seen with a wholesale exit where the executive team didn't stay on. It was kind of bizarre, but worked out for them in the long run. But yeah, very rare, very rare. So both of you, Michelle, still continuing to obviously grow your law firm. What is next for you as a duo? John, you kind of alluded to some things that you're working on now. I don't know if Michelle, maybe allude to a little bit what you're doing with your business too. That'd be great to just learn what's next and what you guys are seeing on the horizon.
Sure. You want to start, Michelle?
Go ahead, John. You have cool stuff to talk about.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So what am I doing? First of all, we're trying to raise our kids through COVID, but we're very fortunate. We have a lot of help. So I think that's going relatively well. In terms of business, I'm working on some iteration of 3 projects. Which is not ideal, but it's the way I'm doing because that's what makes me the happiest, I think. So I'm doing a business it's a community building exercise and business in the nursing space. I'm doing a second one that's going to be in the education space where I'll probably spend more of my time, which is helping universities create kind of like bite-sized career advancing content for their alumni. So if anyone is from the alumni office that's listening, I'd love to talk to you. Thank you. And then the other one I'm excited to talk about because it's kind of like, Ken, you'd ask, where do ideas come from? And so I want to walk through the process of this last one. I had mentioned that for one of my businesses, my nursing business, I'm trying to hire someone to basically run it for me right away. That's a thing that I see more and more of. Like I see a lot more exited entrepreneurs who are looking for business operators, or I see a lot of people who are like investing in, relatively small businesses, but they want someone to come run it. And that can be an amazing opportunity for the investor. Can also be an amazing opportunity for the operator because you get a chance to get equity in a business, which is critical. The way that most people build wealth is with ownership of assets and not with their W-2 salaries. So I'm trying to put together, and I'm very early stage of this, trying to put together essentially like a hiring service where investors, like small business investors, can come with ideas and pay a salary plus equity for ambitious young people to go build out the idea for them. So if anyone wants to help me on that project, let me know. And again, like that might fail. I might forget about it in 3 weeks, but that's just like, you hear the phrase, like, you got to eat your own dog food. Like I had a problem finding someone to come operate my business. This is what I needed to solve it. And so I'm going to go build it for other people and for me.
That's awesome. I think it's a really interesting space too. Yeah. I've seen it a few more times too, to your point, John. So I think there's something there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Michelle, what do you have?
Yeah, I'm working on G&G Law's mission is to make legal services accessible to small businesses. And the idea is to grow it and scale it to make that more and more possible. And sort of, we've always been working on thinking outside the box of the traditional big law way of delivering legal services where, it's hiring a lawyer, working with them for a little while, and then getting a surprise, like $20,000 bill without, $400 for every phone call. So figuring out for the small business market, we've been doing really well in the space of doing the legal work for flat fees and coming up with the workflows behind the scenes to easily train attorneys, which is one of the tough spots for law right now, and bring them on board. And then also figuring out where we can turn legal services more into products to make that more accessible. So kits, the DIY legal services. that type of stuff.
That's really cool.
Excited about.
Yeah, I was exploring your website, and I love the idea of some of the flat fee stuff in this space, because it's one of these things that feels so. I think a lot of entrepreneurs get kind of trapped, right? It's hard to find the right law firm. Maybe it's referral, and then it's like you're calling them. Are they charging me this time? Are they not charging me this time? There's so much just kind of gray area in those transactions, which can add up to a big bill. So I think you're doing some really cool work.
It's fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So speaking of Tim Ferriss, the 4 Hour Work Week, I always try to wrap up kind of these conversations. Believe it or not, we've almost been talking for an hour, which is crazy, right? I will also say this, John, we're also occupying your time as one of our inaugural entrepreneurs in residence at the Burgess Institute. So for any of you who are listening and want to reach out to John on that front too, he is actively helping our student entrepreneurs this fall build businesses. So thanks again, John, for your willingness to jump on. My
pleasure.
Yeah. We sent you business cards, so it's official, right? So.
I got like 5 shirts too, and I love them. Like every day I just wear a different shirt that you guys send me. It's great.
Swag and business cards.
Yeah.
So for any of you who are on the call who want to ask John more, he's more than happy to field more emails and questions. But where do you both turn for inspiration? Like, are there certain books you revisit, podcasts you love? John, you mentioned one. You mentioned E-Myth Revisited, which is a good, bad book. I 100% agree with you on that. It's kind of one of those weird things, right? But are there other books or places you recommend students check out?
Another good, bad book is Traction.
Yes. Also good.
That was fun. That was a big moment of implementing Traction at Next Step. And now it's one of those other stupid entrepreneur things. It took me way too long to implement it for my law firm. And now that we have, everybody loves it. But the idea with Traction is you get a lot more accomplished with small quarterly goals than spinning your wheels trying to do everything at once.
It's a very process-oriented book too, which is, I always think when I think about what you go through in starting a business, it's super chaotic, and growing a business is seemingly chaotic. And what was kind of cool about that book when you're reading it is like, you should be doing the things in the book, but you just don't want to because it seems so boring, but it's also awesome, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a good read.
Yeah, it's the basics.
Yeah.
I got a big list.
Good.
You guys ready for this list dump? Okay. So number 1 is the podcast I discussed was called My First Million. It's associated with a newsletter called The Hustle. Everyone should subscribe to The Hustle. It's like just free businessy stuff. And it's like in a nice conversational format. So like, you're on the train, whatever, you read that. But it's also got a paid group associated with it called Trends. I subscribe to Trends. It's basically weirdly, it's a Facebook group with like 8,000 entrepreneurs and small business owners. That's worth it. It's worth $250 to be in that group. I definitely recommend that. Secondly, I was not a big Twitterer over the years, but the fact that you can get on Twitter and kind of access the brain stream of really smart people is, I think, extraordinarily important. And so I think that if you're able to substitute your media diet, like substitute out like cat pictures and stuff for like the best thinkers in the world sharing their thoughts, I think that's very valuable. The other thing that I always recommend to people is if you are in a business and it starts to get any kind of scale, there's a number of business groups around. I was a member of Entrepreneurs Organization, which was life-changing. That's for businesses that are $1 million plus in revenue. It's quite expensive, but there's a lot that are like that. So I think just like talking and meeting with other entrepreneurs is absolutely critical, because everyone goes through exactly the same problems. Like, Ken, Travis Corrigan, he introduced me to, had this analogy, so I got to give him credit for it, that most businesses, almost all businesses is the analogy, are like a beach ball with a beak. And for every business, the beach ball is the same, just the beak is different. And I love that because it's so true. Like, everyone is dealing with people issues, hiring issues, cash flow, all that sort of stuff. So just being in a place where you're filling your mind with those problems and seeing how people solve them, I think is really important.
Yeah, that's cool. Who's your favorite handle on Twitter? Since you brought it up.
Oh my gosh, that's a hard. How to choose just one. You know who I've been following lately is this guy named Andrew Wilkinson. And it's because he's kind of in a similar life stage to me. I think he built a really big digital marketing agency. I think still runs it, but then he tries to go around like and buy small SaaS businesses. So he's got a lot of wisdom about like doing like little M&A transactions.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's the thing with Twitter. It's my love-hate relationship, right? During the pandemic, it caused me great anxiety. So I really haven't been back since March. but I certainly miss some of the brains I was following. The hard part was they were retweeting stuff. What if Twitter didn't retweet? I think it might be better. I don't know.
I think so too, actually. Yeah.
I think that's actually goes to one of my biggest pieces of business advice is you have to decide what is working for you and what gives you energy. And it might change week to week, and it might be different from what your mentor is telling you gives them energy. So your time is precious. Find your group that really helps you. But if there's a group that everyone says is awesome, but you go there and you just feel like anxiety ridden and down every time after doing that, stop doing it. So I guess and same thing with hiring people. I kind of wanted to bring this up earlier. If you hire somebody and they're not working out, you have to let them go. You just have to be able to stop what's not working too.
I think that's 100%. I always tell students that too, is like, that's like a really tough trap right when you graduate too, is to like go get a job. But if it's really hard to get up in the morning, you should stop it immediately. Like, even if that means like going to do something else that you didn't see happening or whatever, like nothing's worse than something that takes the energy out of you. Oh, yeah. So bad. I had that job. I loved my time in Chicago, but I'd talk myself up every night to like, tomorrow's going to be great. And I was like, oh yeah.
Sorry, Ken.
No, it's okay. It's still a great experience. You look back on it more fun.
I had that job too.
Which is awesome. I think that's,
so did I.
We've all tried it, right? I think we've all
experienced.
But yeah, use your energy and your time. I think that's really cool. That's great advice, Michelle. And it's a great way to end our conversation is use your time wisely. So with that, I want to thank you both for joining us this evening. It was a ton of fun. I love talking to folks like yourself who, are real and inform our students on what their journey was like and can share with us. So typically we'll, I'll kick it back to Chris at this point in time to do a little wrap up, and then we can stick around a little bit for some additional Q&A if anyone wants to hang out. So Chris, take it away.
The Hatchcast is sponsored in part by Spartan Innovations. Spartan Innovations provides startups spinning out of MSU's ecosystem the commercialization, support, and financial resources necessary to turn MSU research technologies into successful Michigan businesses.
Hatchcast is an ongoing
Hatchcast is an ongoing collaboration.
This podcast was co-created
by Aaron Richard, Tyler Mihai,
and Kurt Krieger.
It is produced by the Burgess Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation
in cooperation with the MSU
Foundation.
Gabe Hales
and Justice Keach are our sound engineers and
editors. Our co-producers include Brandon Weaver,
Gabe Hales,
Justice Keach, and Aaron Richard.
Original sound is created by Katya Gardina
with help from Aubrey Haas,
Brandon Weaver,
Caitlin Setter,
Sydney Owinga,
Kurt Krieger, Tyler Mihai,
Gabriella Lum,
Jeff Smith,
Paul Jakes, Ken Smusiak,
Desiree Melfi-Bozzo,
Neil Kane,
and Lori Fisher.
If you have any questions or comments, please
feel free to reach out at
hatchcast@msu.edu.
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 Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.